Going live. Hangout on the air is live. All right, so this is the Modern Educator. What we're going to be talking about today is the computer games in the classroom, or educational games in the classroom. This is, there's a huge movement involved with technology and being able to interact with different mediums with computers, and games are definitely one of them. And so, Dean, well, let's do introduction first. So we have our wonderful guest, Amanda Crane. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Amanda.
I'm Amanda Crane. I teach second grade, and I'm glad to be here.
Nice. And of course, Andrew. We have Andrew here.
Hi, I'm the computer guy. I work on servers for a school district, and yeah, just
the computer guy. I love
I was going to say a computer guy.
Sorry, go ahead, Dean.
I was just going to introduce myself.
Go for it.
Okay, so my name's Dean, and I'm like the ultimate computer guy. Ooh, that sounds awful. No, I've just been doing this for forever. I'm about to turn 30 in computer land.
Wow. Yeah. 30 is like 120 in computer language, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they say in dog years I'd be dead.
You'd be dead. Yikes. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen anytime soon. So, like I said before, the computer education, essentially sitting a student down at a computer and letting them go through a educational program. Go ahead, Dean. Let's have you introduce the topic.
So the topic at hand is computer games, and I was just thinking about how boring school can be sometimes, and how being a kid sometimes is just about playing games. And I think back, in the olden days when I was a kid and we played games, and I think oftentimes the best way for kids to learn is with games. So I wanted to kind of bring that up as a subject and just talk about that as it relates to technology, and have some folks share their experiences with games. I know right nowadays Minecraft is the big one, and that's an exciting game because it allows the players to interact with each other. A lot of times games that are educational, or they take flashcards and they put them on the computer screen, which certainly has a place. But then you have these games where you have to act cooperatively and collaboratively, and I just wanted to chat about those with the group and see what y'all thought about them. And
it's interesting that you mentioned Minecraft. There's actually been a couple of studies come out recently with Minecraft as the topic, and what benefits would a child have by playing Minecraft. And you get a lot of spatial abilities, creative juices flowing, and being able to mine stuff and then build your own creation on a massive scale without any investment or like parental supervision. And that's kind of neat how that platform creates that type of creativity.
Yeah, I think that is such a great thing, and I think sometimes I know as a parent of a child who played what I thought was too many computer games. I thought it's another thing to talk about is maybe we should look at these games for more than just it's the right way a time waster. But how can we make these games be useful, educational games? I think back to the early days of computers, and this was teaching adults how to use computers, and there were simple games like solitaire. And everybody was hating on solitaire. It's such a simple game, but it was such a non-threatening way for adult learners to learn how to use it. Nowadays, of course, everybody knows how to use a mouse and everything. But I think that's the other advantage to games, is sometimes they can be a non-threatening place where people can go to learn and experience things without putting themselves at risk.
It's funny when you mentioned solitaire. My mom plays solitaire a lot, and we're like, Mom, why do you play solitaire? You're always nagging at us as kids, that we're wasting time, and now, you're here playing mahjong and solitaire and that type of thing, and she always responds, I do it to keep my mind fresh, because if I sit and watch TV all day, or during my evenings, then I feel like I'm gonna lose my mental acuity. And if I'm playing these games that are fast and active, then I can kind of keep my mind, if you will. I don't know if there's any merit to that. I'd love to see studies in that regard, but yeah.
So I think I kind of like to open it up a little bit. I think the first category of games is the simple ones. You have the flashcards, and I'm hoping Amanda's got some ideas or some experience with these. What's worked well for her students, and what maybe not so much. We can share that with the others out there that are watching.
Amanda, you're on.
Sorry,
There you
I was on mute. My computer is dying. Sorry, I forgot to plug it in. Had to go get my daughter, but no, we have done both at Ashton. We did that YPP for a long time, and it was more like a flashcard test type thing. Not very motivational. This year we've switched to iReady, which is like games, and it kind of tricks them into learning lessons, and then they play games and stuff, and it seems pretty motivational. I think anytime. I just recently got a Promethean board in my classroom, and even just that type of technology makes anything I do just more engaging and motivational for them. They seem to be more excited to write words on the board than it would just be a regular board. So
what do the games look like in your classroom? Like, describe what a normal student would go through when they have these type of activities.
Oh, like... We play a lot of math games, a lot of quite quick quiz games. Like I can upload, like we did Chutes and Ladders the other day just with math concepts, which just made it more engaging, but they were still learning. So just simple games. I teach second grade, so we don't get too complex, but it's kind of fun that way. Today we did a homophone game, and I read the clues, and they had to hit a buzzer, and they thought that was way more fun than writing homophones. So. Any game, and even like doing your regular lesson and then bribing them with a game, like you can turn anything to a game.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Technology glitch.
Sorry, Amanda, you kind of went out a little bit there.
Oh, sorry.
We caught everything except for the last 3 or 4 seconds, so I think you made your point.
You're okay.
No, that's interesting, especially in second grade. I understand that the level of complexity is, you kind of have to keep it at a certain level. What about the higher levels? What have you? Go ahead.
No, you're good. I said it's. I have a very broad range. I have kids that can read 10 words a minute, and then kids that are on a 5th grade level. So, my Chromebooks have been very motivational. As soon as they get their seat work done, they're able to get Chromebooks, and it's amazing the things that they can do on those. So.
What do you normally put them on when, let's say, a student opens up their Chromebook? What do you normally have them go for?
Their favorite right now is we have a website that we've gone to called Turtle Diary, which is just really learning games. Like a homophone will pop up and they have to shoot the correct homophone. It's pretty simple. Or they like to go to PBS Kids. That's one of their favorites. So. Yeah.
So another thing on there, is if you go, for example, I don't know if Amanda in your classroom you have access to iPads, but if you go to the Apple App Store, there are literally millions of game learning type applications, and I'm just wondering, what your experience has been with those. Have you had a chance to do anything there?
We're a K2 school, so we're kind of like the bottom on the technology. Like the upper grades get it better, but I have my own iPad, and so I will pop up with reflectors on my whiteboard, and we do games and stuff that way. I've been trying to, I download different apps on my Mac, and then pop them up on my Promethean board, and then we do them as a class that way, like Boggle and stuff like that. So,
Oh, that's a great game.
yeah. They love it.
So,
I have all the kids have whiteboards, and then I have two come up at the same time, and they are all writing words and the yelling words at the other kids. It's pretty fun. So
for sure. For sure. And then, and that is kind of, that is, again, that's just a learning game. And I think sometimes, I think we get really, technology has to be, we think it's got to be about the technology, but sometimes, it's the simplest of technologies. A Promethean board isn't, I wouldn't call that a simple technology, but how many times have we thought we had to have this big thing? I remember playing games in school where we were learning our math times tables, and it was just a game that the teacher played times table baseball with us, and we one person would throw a times table at the catcher and the batter, and whoever yelled it out first would either get to move on to the next base. And that was a game that cost nothing to play. It's not technology related, but I think too we ought to make sure that we don't just think that, I've got to have some high dollar equipment to play games.
I do a lot of that in my classroom. Teachers Pay Teachers is like my best friend. I have a lot of games like, God, my brain's just, it's called Knock It Off, or I can't think of the other one. Anyways, it's just a simple game where they roll dice, add, and they can cover things, and they love it. It's crazy how much they love the simple games. It's very motivational to finish our math concept, and then that's what we do next.
One of the overall themes that we've had in a lot of these podcasts have been simply student engagement, and I think it was, I caught the vision when Amanda was talking about having her students go up to the Promethean board and playing those different games that were being actually run off of her Mac. That, I really saw how that could have students heavily engaged, and that's really, really fun. I mean, like I said, that's kind of like the whole point of these type of interactions, is just to simply spark a child's ability to interact in a positive way. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree. Totally. I wanted to draw Andrew into the conversation here, as I think sometimes a lot of times IT people feel like they need to be the protector of the network and the protector of hardware and the protector, and heaven forbid that we should actually use all this technology because it's going to choke our network with too much traffic and things like that. And I know there's legitimate concerns there, but Andrew, as the guy who's in the back room, so to speak, when things go south, it often lands in your lap. What are your thoughts about these sort of things?
I don't know. I guess as far as being the guy who possibly needs to add the game to the machine or whatnot, I think probably the resistance is often to do with just the time involved in the getting something onto a system or whatnot. With Chromebooks, it's pretty good in that if you're just using web-based stuff, you probably wouldn't hit too much resistance from your IT people unless the filters set a little bit too strong to allow things through. I guess I don't know. In general, I've never really felt like I had any kind of problem with adding games to things. It's just a matter of defining the list that you're going to add so that you're not trying to add something last minute on the morning of, or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
What do you think about network utilization and things like that? You know, say for a game, you know, a Minecraft game, and you know, if the grade level of teachers really got the bug to really start pushing these sorts of things, you know, it's one thing to have one classroom of kids.
Right.
It's you know, it's another thing to have a whole grade, and you know,
Right.
if you're in a school district, it's you know, entirely different thing to have an entire school district
Right.
go after that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I don't think games like Minecraft would actually impact most. Well, the district that I work for actually has a pretty dang good network. So certainly I don't think we would have any real concerns about that sort of thing. I guess my opinion would be if it's if the kids are learning and the network can keep up to the point that the game's enjoyable, then I don't know why IT would worry too much about it. I guess if other teachers start complaining because they can't get to the grading, their grading software isn't working, but I don't know. I think probably videos and such, you know, kind of impact the network even more.
Yeah, I mean, with my experience, that's totally been the case. With the games, it's very, very minimal as far as the network traffic. It's essentially just a JavaScript application that's preloaded, and there's very little internet traffic. Ads, you know, a lot of games are ad-based revenue, and so you get a little bit of traffic that way. I mean, I remember working for a school, and they were actually running off of a wireless. You know, they hadn't received fiber yet to their building, but they were still using these quite a bit, and there wasn't a huge issue. Is that, Amanda? Do you remember when before we got fiber to your building?
Yeah, well, it was kind of frustrating in a sense because Reflector like even wouldn't work some of the time. But now that we have fiber, and Jade just updated all of our whole wireless system, so it seems we were dollars into it last summer, so we could actually have a hub in each classroom, so we didn't have any problems with anything. So that's why we're getting all the new technology now. I know a lot of schools in Monroe and the other Pavant, they have, you know, iPads, 3 per child, and you know, 3 children per iPad, you know, so they're using them a lot, and our systems have been way updated. So.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Can I play the devil's advocate?
Oh, please do.
So let me preface this by saying I'm totally for it as far as this type of interaction, but I want to play the devil's advocate for a little bit just to bring out some points. So you know, as a technologist, I would have a certain task, so I'd go into a classroom while the classes were going, and I noticed that specifically in classrooms that they had 3 or 4 or 5 computers kind of clumped together. Like, they're usually super old hand-me-down computers that the kids were playing the games on. The teachers use it as a reward system, saying, okay, if you get your work done, you can go ahead and play on the computer system, whatever that was. And there were some negative influences that, if they weren't kept in check, could run amok, if you will. You know, the really fast workers would just try to complete their assignment as quickly as they could. Doesn't matter about how their quality was or anything like that, and they would just jump onto the computer because it was so much more fun than writing an essay. And so the quality of work seemed to go down in some cases. Amanda, have you experienced mismanagement of that type of technology?
Yeah, you're like middle to low students will try to do that, and you really just have to watch them. And plus, I don't make it available like that. I do a system. A lot of time it's in center rotations, or I'll pick the kids and rotate it each day, just so I can eliminate that. You have to really watch kids. They even do it even if they don't get to play the computer. So.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes I've gone in, and it seems like it's more of the teachers had a really bad day, and so they're like, let's take the easiest road possible. Let's just put the kids on the computers, and that way they can kind of take care of themselves for a little bit. And that's very, very rare. But as the tech guy, sometimes you see that, and you can see the drain in the teacher's eyes. Like I said, that's a very rare case. It doesn't happen all that often, but there is the possibility.
Well, you have your days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's maybe not even such a bad thing. I mean, teachers aren't superhuman. At least I don't think so.
Close.
Some
They're very
seem to be
close.
pretty near that, but if there's a distraction for that off day, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's just that off day.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and
Yeah.
they're very engaging and motivational. Like, I don't know, the kids love them. I just recently just finished animal reports and taught second graders how to Google and Google specific, and they loved it. They thought it was great. Like, what animal group is a camel in or stuff, just very specific information, and it was pretty successful.
So there's another aspect of this that I had experience with. So early on in my career, I worked for charter schools, and there was a specific charter school in the Salt Lake Valley that they were 100% on the computer. Every single student was sitting down at their desk. They had their lesson material all right in front of them. The teacher would, I guess, the structure of the class would be the teacher would teach like a principle for 15 minutes, and then they would sit at their computers, run through a whole and criteria of things at their own pace. And the quick students would go at a quicker pace and be able to accelerate faster, and the students that were a little slower could go at their own pace as well. And it's interesting to see that there's even that type of environment already, where there's a teacher just kind of walking around the classroom answering questions or helping a student out on a problem that they're having difficulty with. Have you guys ever seen that environment before? It's pretty surreal. I'll take that as a no.
No, that's
I know that North Severe High School has adapted one-to-one iPads for all of their students. They wrote a big grant, and so I'm not sure how it works there, but I know that they are paperless. So.
Well, this is an actual charter school built around, we're going to put your kid on a computer and they're going to run through an educational...
Sounds like a Montessori type thing.
What was
Learn
that?
on your own. So
Yeah.
It sounds like a Montessori. Yeah.
Yeah. I always felt weird going there. I mean, it felt like there was very little interaction. The kids, I'm used to going to an elementary school where the teacher's doing their very best to keep the kids from stop interacting, and to go into this environment where it's just like you could almost put up a wall around the kids because they were just so into their computer the whole day. I'd be interested
to see that, because you're right. That's an interesting. You say the teacher spends a good part of their day trying to just keep the kids on task, or as you say, not interacting, and to have them so focused. I wonder. I don't know. There's one side of me says, "Wow, that's great," and the other side of me says, "I don't know."
Yeah, and I think your reaction to that is a reaction that a lot of people get, and that's probably why it hasn't taken off as quickly as the creators might have hoped.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the benefits. Oh, sorry, Dean.
No. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Because I think one of the benefits of public school and that stuff is social interaction. I mean, that's so important, so they learn how to act in a social situation, and I think that's what classrooms do. In a way. So technology can take a place, but I don't think it should replace classroom interaction.
Right. Yeah. And they did have, recess time. They did have, right. Sports programs that, go and hit the baseball around type of thing. But yeah, it was just it's a surreal thing to walk in and see a whole bunch of kids on a whole bunch of computers and very little else going on. But.
Mm-hmm.
It seems
And
like
I wanted to get your feel on do any of your games are there any of them where the students have to log on where their scores are kept individually? I mean, I think at a young age like your students are, a lot of people want to say, well, they're too young to do that. I'm just wondering what your experience has been.
Well, in our school, we do what's called iReady. Are you familiar with that?
No.
It was actually passed by the legislature to be given the reading program to kindergarten first graders, and we got approved for second graders to get it. And it is learning lessons, but then it's very cartoon animated. They teach them a concept, and then they get to play a game, and they get coins, and they can get rewards. And I have seen a lot of success with that this year. Plus, it kind of tells me what level they're at, and it helps guide my instruction. So we take a diagnostic assessment on that 3 times a year, and then they have lessons based on where they landed with that diagnostic assessment. So we do something like that.
Do you have any challenges getting, those young students, they've not been taught to type at this age, and some of them are still, like you say, some are reading at the 5th grade level, and some are just, struggling word by word. Do you have troubles getting them?
It's adaptive, so it goes on their own level, which is awesome. Yeah, and even when I have them type, and like even the Google search, my lower students were still typing, how to search for animal facts, and they did well. I mean, I had to guide them more, but I think if you have high expectation for students, you can get what you expect out of them.
That's awesome. Andrew, I think you were trying to say
oh,
something.
I guess this is kind of falling back to a previous thought, but more or less, it seems like any of these different learning styles on computers have advantages and disadvantages. I mean, if a student is focusing on their own computer, and maybe you're doing something like Khan Academy or something online, which is kind of, I think, maybe a little bit what you were suggesting, Dean, with where you sign in and it's tracking your progress, in this case math in particular. It's going to give you trophies and rewards and whatnot, and you may not be interacting with anybody, but for some kids it's removing this fear of failure in front of other people. They can watch the lesson as many times as they need to, or whatnot, without having to, maybe single themselves out. So that could be an advantage for one kid, whereas they're not really interfacing with people. Or you might have a more interactive model where, the technology is actually bringing out more collaboration or something, and that is going to really help other people shine. It's going to improve their social skills. It's going to maybe even make them a lot more excited about the subject because they're approaching it with somebody else. But I mean, I don't know if there's any one of these that's necessarily 100% better than the other. Just maybe some kids are going to do a lot better with one than another.
Mm-hmm. I was chatting with one of our teachers in our district about this subject, and a comment that he made that I thought was insightful, at least for me, was his comment was that you go to the App Store for the iPad, and there's literally thousands of apps, and they're all variations of the same thing, and his comment was that he's tried to load 2 or 3 different ones of the same thing on his iPad to use with the students, because what doesn't click with one student might absolutely click with another. So having this multiple variations of the same theme has been, from his perspective, a really good thing to have, and it's not just a waste to have 3 math flashcard type games, but each is a little different, and he's found that's been a valuable thing for him to have.
Right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I tend in second grade to tend to use those kind of programs like Khan Academy whole group instead of individual. So I will pull up a lesson and we'll work on it with our individual wives together. And I've seen a lot of success with that. Plus I use BrainPop Junior a ton, and I love that program.
And what's that program?
BrainPop Junior, it's short educational videos. And then you can do like quizzes and other type of games to teach you about it again. It has any subject you can think of. Today I used one on fractions. So I usually use them when I'm introducing a concept, and then we write and talk about it and stuff like that. So today we watched them on fractions.
Cool.
Very cool.
Andrew, earlier before the cast, you were talking about gamification.
Yeah, I guess I think we've kind of already talked about it, but it's just kind of the idea of, rather than necessarily having a game that teaches a thing, it's using kind of game-like principles. For those who are video game nerds out there, whatever, the thing that gets you to pick up the game is essentially just little rewards. You complete a task, you get some sort of reward for it, you complete another task. There's certain things that games do really well. They make you feel like you're accomplishing something, and
I experienced this in a really weird way this last week. So I downloaded an Android app called Waze. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before.
Yeah.
It's essentially traffic, it's a traffic app that'll tell you, if there's an accident or anything like that. And it was giving me points for saying there's something on the road, and I'm like, why would I want points? Or there was this fruit that when I passed through, it would hey, you got 20 points, and I'm like, why?
I was driving.
But deep inside, I'm like, wow, cool. I got 20 points. What else can I do?
That's like the program we use. We use that iReady, and that's what it does. When the kids, finish a lesson, they get coins, and then they can cash the coins in to play games. It's pretty motivational. They love it.
When I used Waze some time back, and as I recall, as you're navigating around, you can look at the leaderboard. You can see in your area who is on top.
Make a competition out of it.
Yeah.
Somehow this scares me. As people are driving around playing a virtual video game.
It's probably not entirely safe.
Or legal. I think in the state of Utah, you can't operate your phone at all while you're driving. So, frankly, it's probably illegal, but
It's fun to get points and things.
But we got points, officer. Hello. Can't you see how important this is?
As teachers right now, it's March Madness, so we all have the Tournament Challenge app on our phones and are checking it. Started today, so we get points for teams that win.
So I've got one more subject that I think probably bears touching on, and I think it kind of takes us right up into the bleeding edge, and maybe even to the gee, that'd be cool, but it just doesn't exist yet, and that's virtual reality. So there's these goggles that you can put on that will track your head movements, and then you see, as you move around, and personally, I've never experienced that, but everybody who I've heard experienced it just goes, "Oh my gosh, that is the greatest thing."
I'll bring mine to you next week. Well, I'll throw you a text and do a little show and tell with you guys.
Perfect. But I'm wondering, I think that is something that is really a future. If you could put a student into a world, if you will, and let them just explore virtually on their own. I found one example of it, and it was just a computer. It wasn't these high-tech goggles that really, I don't know that even the most rich computer nerds have, or the game nerds have even really been able to get the Oculus Rift and the other goggles like it. But it was a game. It was meant for middle schoolers, where they could explore a construction site. I don't know why a middle schooler would be exploring a construction site, but it allowed them to, with a pointer, they could point where they wanted to go on the screen, and then if they went to the wrong place, like too close to the edge or or there was a saw, and just different things that you'd find that could be dangerous on a construction site. It gave them the ability to experience those things, but it wasn't a scripted sort of a thing. You were just kind of put into this world and told to explore. And so I think that's kind of a really early vision of what that might be. You could easily see the goggles and a more sophisticated route. But I don't know that that's any time in our near future, being the next 2 or 3 years. This would be too expensive. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I love the vision of having a student. I mean, even a second or third grader putting on a VR goggle and being able to do mathematics with reaching up and grabbing a ball that has a number 2 on it and throwing it in the basket or whatever to say, oh, 2 + 5 = 7. That type of thing where you can totally interact with your environment and say, okay, this has a 5 on it, and this has a 2 on it, and I'm going to throw both into the basket, and I get points for creating a sum of 7, whatever. I like that idea. I think that's really imaginative, and I hope that future comes true. Amanda, you were going to say something?
No, you're good. It kind of reminds me of the Wii, a little bit.
Yeah, the Wii, and the interactivity that you get there. Don't know that I've ever seen any educational games on.
No, there's not, but we do Just Dance with our 190 second graders. It is quite entertaining and a great way to get PE in.
There you go. See, it's a game, and you're learning how to exercise. So, I think
they love it. And there's only 4 kids on the controllers, but all 190 of them are doing the actions. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I'm sure that is a room to be in for sure.
Yes.
So I kind of run the course of what I had to talk about, and does anybody else have anything?
I just have some final thoughts. Just kind of recap, I think the real benefit to educational games is simply being able to go at your own speed. Where that's something that's really difficult as a teacher that has 30, 35 students in one classroom. She kind of has to keep everybody kind of on the same page and still making progress while bringing up the rear, but still providing enough incentive for the kids that are moving ahead to keep on pushing ahead. And that's an area that like I talked about before with the classroom, that's their main motivation, is so that the kid can go at whatever speed they want. And these educational games not only help the kids that want to go ahead faster, but also provide additional resources for those kids that are lacking behind, that maybe they're learning a different way than the other kids, and that provides a different avenue to be able to catch that topic and say, oh, that makes more sense because I'm learning it visually instead of audio through what the teacher is trying to tell me. And even having muscle movements activates different parts of the brain that can help assist in learning. So I think that's a real huge benefit to computer educational games in that respect.
I think one of the things that's maybe hard for kids sometimes with education is to really feel like they're making progress. And maybe I'm just, assuming that, but it seems like if you've got some sort of method where the kid feels like they got 20 points for, doing some activity, it breaks it up into a small chunk where they can feel like they're accomplishing something. I mean, they obviously are, whether or not they got that 20 points or not. But maybe that 20 points makes it a little bit easier for them to feel like they did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like adaptive games allow every level of student to feel that accomplishment, because if they don't have that chance or that opportunity, they're always frustrated, especially those ones that are like a half a grade or a grade behind in their skills. Adaptive games like that we do at our school allows them to be successful. Even though they're still a grade and a half behind, they're still on their instructional level, so they're feeling that success and not being so frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other kids, I have kids in my second grade class on a 5th grade level in these adaptive games, so.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too, and I thought about this as Andrew was talking, was meeting the kids where they are. So I'm sure that a lot of these kids are going home and they're playing games when they get home, and the games that they're playing at home have the little rewards all along the way, and so now school becomes more of where they are rather than go sit in your desk and write on this piece of paper. Now it's with the games again, it's more where they are anyway, so they're going to tend to be more engaged with what they're doing.
I can't believe the difference of engagement in my classroom this year to last year with just putting that Promethean board in my classroom. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, when Ashman was just, when I was working there, there was a big push for website, like creating a website and putting educational links on the website, and it was really fun to see, and I wish I could pull it up right now, but to see where let me backtrack. So the educational links that were put on the website were hit far more often than anywhere else on the entire system. And I was even looking at locations, because you're like, oh, well, the students go into the computer lab and they log in, they know where the Ashman website is, and so they jump on and they know where the links are. But I checked out the analytics, and 90% of those were not in the school, like not coming from the school. They were coming from the homes. And that was a huge motivator for the principal at the time to be able to provide, hey, these are some amazing places to go. If your kid is bored at home and they want to jump on the computer, they know exactly where to go. And instead of playing, like first-person shooters or whatever, they're jumping onto these educational games and continuing the learning at home, which was something that really provided a lot of motivation to put all of these online and to get a gathering.
Well, and I think it helps parents feel safer, because they're getting it through the school website, so obviously it's approved. Do you know what I mean? Instead of the kid going out there and searching for it. So, yeah, parents still ask me, how do I get there? And I still send them to the Ashman website, so.
Yeah, and we'll post a bunch of those that are on the Ashman website on the moderneducator.com, so they're easily accessible. If that's not the case, ashmanelementary.org is where that is if anybody wants to get to them. Yeah, it was really fun to see the type of reception when that first went live. The students really caught on to it quite well.
Yeah, even little kindergartners.
Which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, go for it, Dean.
I think in closing, I think games are really a lot of where it is, where the kids are, and we should go kind of meet them halfway, if not all the way, with our games. And I think in our conversation we touched on a lot of really good ways that they can be used, and I don't see any real downside. The tech guys are like, oh, I don't see a big issue, and there's a lot of opportunities to use them in the classroom. The adaptive games, meet the student where they are academically. The games in general meet the students where they want to be. I'm struggling to see a downside with them.
Yeah, like I said, it can be abused. It can, the teacher can just check in and say, okay, go to your computers and
go to your computers.
Out, right? There's definitely abuses, but as far as an administrator debating whether they should implement something like this, it's a solid home run, in my opinion.
Absolutely, because that if you've got that quote teacher, they'll find some other way. The computer game is not the problem in itself. It's the individual there. So
Definitely. Any other closing thoughts, Andrew? You've kind of been silent for a while.
Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as the games, I mean, obviously some games are going to be better than others, and kind of as a technology guy, I'm not too worried because I think, that really comes down to teachers evaluating what games are actually useful and which ones aren't. So, I'm not too worried about it as the technology guy because if I was, I would just be putting my nose where I don't have expertise. But
Very good. Amanda, any last thoughts?
I think there's definitely a time and a place, and it is with anything if you use it appropriately and educationally and have an expectation for it, then I think it can be very successful. So.
Great. So there's a Modern Educator. You can always view our videos at the moderneducator.com. We also, these are run off of the Google Hangouts Live, and so you can view all of them on YouTube. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy lives and your long days, and look forward to the next one.